Israel's military says it has withdrawn its forces from the southern Gaza city of Khan Younis. Today is Sunday, April 7th, 2024, and this is the Dunkley Report. Israel's military says it has withdrawn its forces from the southern Gaza city of Khan Younis, wrapping up a key phase in its ground offensive against the Hamas militant group. But defense officials say troops are merely regrouping as the army prepares to move into Hamas's last stronghold, Rafah. Rafah shelters some 1.4 million people, and the prospect of an offensive has raised global alarm. The withdrawal brings Israel's troop presence in the territory to one of the lowest levels since the war began. It is a milestone as Israel and Hamas mark 6 months of fighting. Amal Altawil and Rola Sakar gave birth in a Gaza hospital on October 7th, the day Hamas militants streamed across the border in a deadly attack that kicked off the war with Israel. The women and their husbands had been trying to have children for years, so even nearby explosions and rockets flying overhead weren't going to keep them from giving birth that day. They emerged from the hospitals to a changed world. Israel declared war, and its fighter jets swooped over the neighborhoods where the two kids were supposed to grow up. In the 6 months since the children were born, the couples have experienced the trials of early parenthood against the backdrop of a brutal conflict. The head of the UN's atomic watchdog agency has condemned a drone strike on one of 6 nuclear reactors at the Russian-controlled Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in Ukraine. He says such attacks significantly increase the risk of a major nuclear accident. Rafael Mariano Grossi confirmed at least 3 direct hits against the plant's main reactor containment structures took place. He said it was the first such attack since November 2022, when he set out 5 basic principles to avoid a serious nuclear accident with radiological consequences. Officials at the plant said the site was attacked Sunday by Ukrainian military drones. They said 1 casualty was reported. Coach Dawn Staley and South Carolina completed their perfect season, ending Caitlin Clark's historic college career with an 87-75 win over Iowa in the NCAA championship game. The 38-0 Gamecocks became the 10th Division I team to go through a season without a loss. And they accomplished the feat after they lost all 5 starters from last season's team that lost to Clark's squad in the national semifinals. Clark did all she could to lead the Hawkeyes to their first championship. She scored 30 points, including a championship record 18 in the first quarter. She will go down as one of the greatest players in NCAA history. Eclipse enthusiasts are staking out their spots across 3 countries, fervently hoping for clear skies. Forecasts are calling for clouds along most of the sun-vanishing route stretching from Mexico to the U.S. to Canada on Monday. North America won't see another coast-to-coast total solar eclipse for 21 years, prompting the weekend's worry and mad rush. 4 minutes of daytime darkness beckon in Mesquite, Texas, where many locals are getting the day off. Others traveled thousands of miles to witness the cosmic event if the weather allows. International leaders have condemned Ecuador after police in the capital, Quito, broke into the Mexican embassy to arrest a former vice president who had been granted political asylum. The raid Friday prompted Mexico's president to break off diplomatic relations with Ecuador. Diplomatic premises are considered foreign soil and inviolable under international treaties, and host country law enforcement agencies are not allowed to enter without the permission of the ambassador. Police broke through the external doors of the embassy to arrest Jorge Glass, who had been residing there since December. He had sought asylum after being indicted on corruption charges, and it had been granted hours earlier. Rwandan President Paul Kagame has blamed the inaction of the international community for allowing the 1994 genocide to happen, as Rwanda commemorated 30 years since an estimated 800,000 people were killed by government-backed extremists. Rwanda has shown strong recovery and economic growth in the years since, but scars remain, and there are questions about whether genuine reconciliation has been achieved under the long rule of Kagame, whose rebel movement stopped the genocide and seized power. Kagame is praised by many for bringing relative stability, but vilified by others for his intolerance of dissent. He led somber commemoration events Kigali on Sunday in the presence of foreign visitors including former U.S. President Bill Clinton and Israeli President Isaac Herzog. As he campaigns for a second term, President Joe Biden is highlighting how women's health has been affected by the overturning of federal abortion protections. And now his campaign is getting help from two women who say abortion restrictions put them in medical peril. Amanda Zarowski of Texas and Caitlin Joshua of Louisiana say their personal experiences are driving them to campaign for the Democratic president in North Carolina and Wisconsin over the next 2 weeks. The Biden team sees their stories as potent first-hand accounts as abortion restrictions pushed by Republicans complicate health care. Republicans, including Donald Trump, are struggling to figure out how to talk about the issue, if at all. A grieving father who lost his son, Jacob Flickinger, after Israeli airstrikes killed 7 World Central Kitchen aid workers, spoke to U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken with a clear message. John Flickinger told Blinken on Saturday that the United States, Israel's most important ally, must use its power to pressure Israel to end killings in the Hamas-run territory. Jacob Flickinger, a U.S. and Canadian dual citizen, was killed in the April 1st Israeli drone strikes that hit a convoy he and 6 other aid workers were traveling in to deliver food aid in Gaza. The 33-year-old Flickinger is survived by his wife, Sandy Leclerc, and his 1-year-old son, Jasper. Researchers have found that most cancer drugs granted accelerated approval by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration do not deliver on their early promise. The program allows the FDA to grant early approval to drugs that show favorable initial results against debilitating or fatal diseases. In exchange, drug companies are expected to do rigorous testing and produce better evidence before gaining full approval. The study found that between 2013 and 2017, there were 46 cancer drugs granted accelerated approval. Of those, only 43% demonstrated they improved or extended patients' lives in confirmatory trials. The research was published Sunday. Today's news has been reported by the Associated Press. This has been the World News for Sunday, April 7th, 2024. Thanks again for joining us at the Dunkley Report.